Hey, it's Ron, and I want to tell you a story about business and how that story changed everything. The morning sky over Austin is pale and windless. A handful of people gather in front of the small Capitol building, their boots crunching in the frost. A bugle sounds once, then fades. On a wooden pole at the center of the square, the red, white, and blue banner of the Republic of Texas flutters, then drops slowly to the ground. A soldier folds it up with practiced hands. Another reaches for the new flag, the Stars and Stripes of the United States, and pulls it up the same rope. It carries 28 stars, the newest one stitched for Texas, still bright white against the worn blue field. It's a quiet exchange. No parade, no speeches, no cheering crowd. Just the sound of fabric snapping in the breeze and a few polite claps before the onlookers scatter back to their wagons and storefronts. There's not really a sense of what this moment means, at least not yet. In a single morning, a nation has vanished, replaced by a state. But what most see as a ceremony is, in truth, a transaction. That flag doesn't just mark sovereignty, it marks ownership. Land, debt, trade, and access all shifted with the pull of a rope. The United States hasn't just gained a territory. It's acquired leverage, resources, and a foothold that will shape everything from cotton to oil to war. But what happens when a nation's future is reduced to a quiet swap of cloth in the winter air? How does one ceremonial gesture hide the economic forces waiting underneath it? And on December 29, 1845, how did that simple flag exchange redraw the business and power map of an entire continent? From Business Basics, I'm Ron Trucks, and this is Business History, the daily podcast where we explain the stories that changed business forever. Throughout history, every date has a story where business reshaped the world. Today, December 29th, that story takes us to 1845, when Texas joined the Union and brought its own business plan. Now, understand, when Texas joined the Union, it wasn't simply out of patriotism or pride. It was survival and strategy. The Republic of Texas had spent nearly a decade as an independent nation, flying its own flag, printing its own money, and fighting to stay solvent. Independence had brought freedom, but not stability. The young republic was drowning in nearly $10 million of debt, its currency worthless, its credit gone. $10 million, the 1845 equivalent of hundreds of millions today. Enough to bankrupt a young nation, but barely a line item for Washington, even at that point. To the United States, Texas wasn't a charity case, it was an opportunity. The territory stretched from the Gulf of Mexico to the panhandle of its republic, 268,000 square miles of farmland, grazing territory, and untapped potential. It was also a ready-made market for railroads, banks, and shipping ports. Congress saw profit in the paperwork. By admitting Texas, the U.S. gained not only land, but leverage, control over Gulf trade, new cotton routes, and a border that reached directly into Mexico. For Washington, annexation wasn't just expansion, it was diversification. For Texas, it was a merger. In exchange for statehood, the United States agreed to assume Texas's massive debt and recognize its land claims. The Texan government, desperate for legitimacy and liquidity, agreed to the terms. Overnight, what had been an unstable frontier republic became a solvent member of a continental economy. And yet, for all its promise, the deal carried fine print, because the land that came with Texas was worked by enslaved labor. Its entry as a slave state tipped the scales of Congress and drew a line straight toward conflict. Economic advantage and moral compromise bound together from day one. The annexation of Texas didn't just expand the map. It redefined how America did business with itself. For the first time, a state entered the Union not as a blank slate, but as an entity with its own debt, its own constitution, and trade policy. A partner, not just a project. That model would echo in every territorial negotiation that followed, and that independent mentality has never really left. It's a self-made pride that still fuels the Texas identity, for better or worse. And Texas wasted no time turning its assets into capital. Within months, land offices opened to survey and sell newly recognized acreage. Titles that had been dubious under the Republic were suddenly backed by federal legitimacy. Ranchers, speculators, and foreign investors poured in, buying tracts by the thousands. The cotton economy exploded. Gulf ports like Galveston and Indianola became export hubs feeding the northern mills. The profits built railroads, banks, and entire towns. But it wasn't just cotton. The annexation created an energy corridor long before oil. The rivers, ports, and proximity to Mexico positioned Texas as the crossroads for trade in every direction. Meanwhile, the political costs came due. Mexico, which had never recognized Texas's independence, viewed the annexation as provocation. Within months, skirmishes along the Rio Grande ignited into the Mexican-American War, a conflict that handed the U.S. vast new territories and made Texas the launching pad for Western expansion. That quiet morning in Austin had set the stage for the next half-century of American growth and its greatest divisions.
Adoption of teens from foster care is a topic not enough people know about, and we're here to change that. I'm April Dinwiddie, host of the new podcast, Navigating Adoption, presented by Adopt US Kids. Each episode brings you compelling real-life adoption stories told by the families that live them with commentary from experts. Visit adoptuskids.org/podcast or subscribe to Navigating Adoption, presented by Adopt US Kids. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Administration for Children and Families and the Ad Council.
In the decades that followed, Texas became exactly what the U.S. had paid for, a resource engine with no ceiling. Cotton ruled first, then cattle, then oil, each boom feeding into the next. Every new industry layered on the same foundation, land as leverage. By the early 20th century, the same logic that drove annexation was still shaping its economy. Buy, extract, and export. Texas's open-range ranching turned into agribusiness, its oil fields into global supply lines. The state's wealth became synonymous with scale, its politics with power. But the price of that prosperity never really disappeared. The annexation had embedded contradictions: rapid growth versus federal control, independence versus integration. The same state that sold itself into the Union kept defining itself by how little it wanted to belong. And yet, from railroads to refineries, from the cotton port of Galveston to the energy corridors of Houston, the bet paid off. What looked like a little quiet flag change in 1845 had rewritten the country's balance sheet and its geography. And that all started on December 29, 1845, the morning Texas stopped being a nation and started becoming an economy. I'm Ron Trucks, and this is Business History, the daily podcast that finds the turning points behind the headlines. To hear more stories like this, follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen. And if you're enjoying the stories, please don't forget to subscribe and leave a quick review. It helps more people find the story behind the business. Want to actually understand business without the fluff or the buzzwords or the MBA language? Start by visiting businessdailypodcast.com.
Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely, and parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Try Greenlight risk-free today at greenlight.com/Wondery.